All right. You're live.
All right,
Same bloodline. We got you.
we'll consider ourselves called to order for the June meeting of the Calvert City Planning Commission. First time of business will be the approval of our minutes from our March 17th meeting. The May meeting, we did not have a quorum, but you have the meeting notes from March 17th. What's the pleasure of the commission?
I have reviewed the minutes and make a recommendation to accept them as presented.
Motion by Gary, a second. Second by Ben. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed by like sign? And it's approved. All right, John, you want to lead us on your discussion?
Yes, sir. The legislature has this past session, created a issue that we're going to have to deal with. However, we do have a year to get this completed, but we're going to have to go back and look at how we adopt or how we do the single family dwellings. Okay. Because single family dwellings shall now include, according to the statute, qualified manufactured homes. Now, it regulates planning and zoning regulations, but it does not regulate HOAs, codicils, covenants, and stuff like that. If you're a developer and you say no, then it does not supersede that. Now, this is supposed to take effect July of next year. So we've got between here and there to determine how we want to address this. One of the things that I've noticed, they list not all manufactured homes, but a quote unquote qualified manufactured home. Now, you guys should have a copy of that in front of you. Okay. I want you to look at on the definitions, or right here under section 1 from the Kentucky General Assembly. They've added the words, "At the same time, the Kentucky General Assembly hereby recognizes and affirms that while local governments have legitimate authority to enact reasonable zoning regulations, the provisions of quality, affordable housing through qualified manufactured homes serves an essential public purpose." Now, we are listed as a local government because we are a city. And a qualified manufactured home under section 2D, not a manufactured home, but a qualified manufactured home is defined under subsection C of section 2, meaning a single family dwelling constructed after June. I'm sorry. Qualified is D. I'm sorry, D. A qualified manufactured home means a manufactured home that meets all of the following criteria: is manufactured on a date not to exceed 5 years prior to the date of the installation and has all parts that operate during transport removed, hence axles, tires, hitch, all the trailer function portion have got to come off, which is, what does that sound like? Our Class A manufactured home. Okay. It is affixed to a permanent foundation and is connected to the appropriate facilities and is installed in compliance with KRS 227-570. Now, you have a copy of that also. That's the construction standard, is what that is. Has a width of at least 20 feet at its smallest width measurement, or is 2 stories in height and oriented on the lot or parcel so that its main entrance door faces the street, and has a minimum total living area of 900 square feet. Okay, permanent foundation. We know what that is, the continuous block, foundation. It has to be, now the only thing it will get into a situation is if we were to say that it had to have some particular foundation that didn't meet its engineering standard, which should not be a problem because we don't have anything specific other than the Kentucky Building Code. So that should not be an issue to my knowledge. The permanent foundation, of course, is capable of transferring without failure into soil or bedrock the maximum design load imposed by or upon the structure and complies with the 227-570. With materials that are compatible with surroundings residential structures, so long as the materials do not compromise the structural engineering of the home in conflict with 227-570. Placed at a depth below grade adequate to prevent frost. So it's got to get the frost line is the same as it would be for a house. Placed at a depth, let's see, of this section, local government shall not adopt or enforce any zoning regulation, ordinance, or other requirement that excludes qualified manufactured homes from any residential zone where a single family residence is permitted. Discriminate against qualified manufactured homes or acts of the General Assembly imposes foundation requirements on manufactured homes that conflicts with the structural engineering of the home, conflicts with the KRS 227-570, or require more than one type of permanent foundation system. Any local government may adopt and enforce as part of its zoning regulations compatibility standards governing the placement of qualified manufactured homes in residential zones within the local government's jurisdiction. Compatibility standards shall be adopted, amended, and enforced in the same manner as other zoning regulations and shall be in addition to any zoning regulation that are not generally applicable to single-family residences. Any architectural compatibility standards applied to a qualified manufactured home must be equivalent to and not more stringent than those same standards or the standards applied to any other single-family residential structure in that zone. So in other words, if you go back and you say, all right, if we're gonna say in a zone R1 that we want to set some standards and it would not rule out qualified manufactured homes, but it would set standards. We use that right now in our Class A because it has to have a 412 pitch or better. That same thing goes in would be required of any stick-built house on the site. If you say a minimum standard of 1,200 square feet on the house, then of course tiny homes are going to be moving to a different zone. If it's R1 as a minimum of that, then they would have to have a qualified manufactured home that met that standard as well. That's not really, I don't think it's really a hard thing to meet because you can probably get a 20 by 60 fairly easy. But those are some of the things we have to look at. We'll need to get probably some more information on sizes to see what we could or could not do as far as the style, what you want in certain zones and how you want to play, how you want to go with that. Again, you cannot set a standard that would completely alleviate or eliminate these from that zone. But whatever you put on that structure goes for every structure built in that zone. Okay. All right. So.
Question, John, can a subdivision, if they have a covenant or if they come in,
They can restrict that.
not
yes.
allow?
They can't. We can't. The city or the planning and zoning cannot restrict that or cannot say no manufactured homes of any kind.
Okay.
A developer can.
Okay.
That doesn't take their ability to say that. Okay. That's a standard that they can set and it's above what we can. We are held to a different standard on that one. Matter of fact, it gets down in here and it says nothing in this section. We'll get back to that in just a second. Okay. Okay. Here's some of the things here. The compatibility standards adopted by local government shall be limited to the following architectural features that have significant impact on the overall assessed value of the structure. Now I'm reading from I think it's the third page, subsection 4 at the end of that. And it lists roof pitch, square footage of livable space, type and quality of exterior finish materials, foundation skirting, existence and type of attached structures. In other words, garages, et cetera, and setback restrictions, lot dimensions, and orientation of the home on the lot, so long as they are no stricter than those for site-built homes within the same zone. Again, just what we talked about. Now, if a manufactured home does not meet the minimum standard width of 20 feet or minimum total living area of 900 square feet, needed to be considered as a qualified manufactured home under this subsection of 2D of this, it can be treated or may be treated as a qualified manufactured home for the purpose of subsection 3 and 4. So you could do that if the setback requirements or the lot dimensions would not reasonably accommodate a home meeting the minimum dimensions. The home is a maximum width and square footage that could reasonably fit on the lot while complying with all the applicable setback requirements and other zoning regulations. That's it may, it doesn't say you shall, it says may, okay? The home otherwise meets all other requirements of a qualified manufactured home under this section. Nothing, number 6, nothing in the section shall, or correction. This section shall not be construed to affect, modify, or abolish restrictions contained in recorded deeds, covenants, or developers' subdivision restrictions. Okay? There you go. That's your answer, Gary.
Okay.
So John, remind me something. Currently, right now, we don't have any regulations regarding roof pitch, square footage.
We do on Class A manufactured
Yeah.
home, not on
About
stick
20
built.
Years ago.
Not on stick built.
Not on stick built.
Not on-
We do on a Class A manufactured home. It is a 412 pitch.
But we limit that what zone it can go in.
That's correct. That's going to change.
Yeah.
If we keep that, and I would, that's a recommendation I would make, for any of those as a 412 or better pitch. I think that's just, that's the standard you set for all homes if you do that.
But we could solve two problems with kill two birds with one stone. If we were to go back and look at the residential zones and put some minimum square footage sizes of the structure.
That would be part of it.
That
Yes,
could
you
take
have that
care of tiny
ability.
homes as well as.
That's correct. Yeah, tiny homes would not, no, if you put in a minimum size, you'll limit the amount. You'll limit tiny homes, and I say that because tiny homes, most of them are generally less than 1,000 square feet.
Right.
So if you're limiting and say a minimum square footage of 1,200 or whatever you're gonna say,
Right.
then anything less than that, yes, would have to go to one of the other single family or other residential zones.
Right.
So it just depends on how you want to write that.
And didn't we go through all this about 20 years ago? Because,
No, state stepped in here. This is
oh no,
a Class A manufactured home as
No,
was
what-
set it forth. Yeah, we
no,
had,
what I'm talking about is the pitch on the roof, because
that was a
people
Class
wanted
A. That's
to
how.
bring in just
Mhm.
the regular and the trailers, and we'd reached out, and I reached out to a Bob Leeper, and he's like, oh, this is not going to and affect you at all, and it did, and that was when we did the and pitch on the roof.
Okay.
About 2005, 2006.
Well, we use a Class A manufactured home. Is described as a double wide or 20-foot wide. It has to have the running gear or all the stuff, all the trailer axles and all that have to be removed. Has to be on a permanent foundation, just like we're talking about.
Yeah,
The only difference here is they don't specify roof pitch, and we did. That's the
Yeah.
biggest definition
But-
difference.
once again, the state is, I mean, we're being forced into, well, not being forced, but.
Yeah, we are.
We are.
You have to consider it. And the issue is you still have compatibility standards that you can set, and that's up to you. But it also is looking at, it's their issue. They stated in there that it was for, what was the word they used? Quality, affordable housing. Is the thing they're looking at. So,
Do we only allow manufactured homes in
qualified
R4?
the Class A manufactured home is allowed by conditional use in an R3 and an R4, industrial, all that, yeah.
So just R3.
But this will move that into an R1. Depends on what standard you set as to what they can do. I mean, what they produce anymore is actually amazing. I mean, they do put out some 2-story units. I haven't seen one, I don't think, but I've seen some single story units that are really impressive. I never got used to that little fake roof on the front of it. But other than that, those that have the straight 412 or better pitch roof have got some decent looks. The one that I know that looks probably as good as any of them, and I dare most people wouldn't know, dare say most people wouldn't know, is Brillo's mother.
I've looked at that since you mentioned that last month.
That house is a manufactured home. It's a Class A manufactured home. But if you didn't know it, you probably would miss it.
Yeah.
Because it blends in pretty good. Goes on to section 8. 7, it just says this section shall not be construed as limiting in any way. That's your historic thing. We don't have historic yet. Any zoning regulation, ordinance, or requirement that violates this section is void and unenforceable. We are also not in a consolidated local government, so that section 9 does not apply to us as well. So what we have to take a look at is how do you want to blend that? That's what we need to look at. And this, like I said, we've got a year, and we were going to we wanted to talk about it last time, but we were short for a vacation or whatever. And so I brought it back and do it again so that people understand that this is something we don't have a choice in the matter. So, and all the only ones that are being restricted in this is government. It's not, they're not restricting developers. Okay. So that's your copy. It was signed by the governor April 1st, but the act takes effect July 1st, 2026. Okay. So that's it. And then the 227, 570, this is your construction installation standards for manufactured homes. And it's not detailed as far as getting into a lot of what the inspectors would have to get into, but it does talk about some of those standards. Questions? Okay. The other issue, if you want me to move on, the other issue is I've noted that we now, of course, we've been doing food truck for a number of years now. But what else? But the definition for that states, as you see there, that a unit mounted or pulled by a self-propelled vehicle where food, including prepackaged food for individual service, is prepared and or dispensed, is self-contained and designed to be readily movable, is intended to move daily to return to its commissary. One of the things we've got now is we have people who they're rolling in and they're setting up tables and tents, or they're setting up tents and serving food that way, as opposed to the vehicle. And I don't know if we want to address this because, I mean, right now, it's questionable as to whether or not they need a zoning compliance. They don't meet this description per se, but at the same time, they're competing side by side with food trucks. And it might be a consideration that we want to go back and add that to it. Because we get it a lot. People will sell, they'll set up and sell market stuff, or they'll set up and sell food. And, you don't really have a lot of the, we don't have any muscle with it, I guess you'd say. Health department is supposed to be checking on it, but if they're not aware of it, no, we ask them if they show up for our food truck Friday, if this is where they showed up at, they have to have a health department certificate to be there. So, and they pay the electrical charge if they get electricity each Friday that they're there. It's a $10 fee, but they're not having to. Well, we have been moving forward with that. It may not be the right way to do it, but we may have to look at that. But I think we want to consider that, or maybe it's something the council will consider directly and just say that it is required to pay a one-time fee, just like they do with food trucks. They have to pay a one-time $25 fee for their food truck zoning. And that's all. They're from there on, as long as they operate the city and don't miss a year, they're still good. You know,
Now they're required by state law, any of these tents to get a temporary permit actually from the health department.
understood.
Okay,
And they can't dispense without it
yeah,
here. What I'm talking about though is the people they're competing against have to get zoning permits.
okay.
And these people do not necessarily have to. Now, most of them I've talked to said, I'm not worried about it. We'll just do the zoning permit if that's what you want us to do. So we've done that. But we need to address this and find out whether this is something we want to look at, either as a food truck or some other entity,
Uh,
you know, but we need to look at that for our zoning.
and this definition is not correct.
What do you mean it's not correct?
Is prepared and are dispensed, is self-contained, is designed to be readily movable, is intended to be moved daily to return to its commissary. Most food trucks now don't have a commissary.
The commissary is their home base.
Well,
Whatever their home base is, whether it's a restaurant or it's their home or some other place, that's their commissary.
no, but not with the health department, it's not.
Well, this is the zoning, it's
Yeah,
not a health
but-
department.
But a commissary is usually a permitted and a kitchen. Under most definitions.
Would you like to address that? Look into it and address that? Sure. See if we need to change that or whatever, how that needs to be done. Because most of them prepare the
But all we're
food.
really saying is it doesn't need to be in that spot.
It does, well, the issue is.
It needs
Take
to
it
go
somewhere
home,
else.
wherever home
We're
is.
over.
Most of them are licensed cooking the food in the vehicle, preparing it in the vehicle, not somewhere else and then prepackaged is, yes. But I think he was trying to involve all of those that do that, because there are some that prepackage stuff. And they were going out in the old days, they would go out to the plants and sell them, as opposed to the food trucks we have and know today.
That was a roach coach.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Gedunk man. So, but yeah, and I think that was what he was intending when he wrote it that way. I don't know that for a fact, but that just strikes me as the whole thing, because like you said, as far as the commissary goes, most of them are not cooked. Some are, but not all of them. Most of them are cooking on the site.
Yeah.
John, that daily movement requirement, is that just kind of waived during holiday weekends,
Well-
like Celebration and where they're
And-
there for 2 or 3 days?
If it's an event that's a little bit different, most of them though are gonna go home anyway, because they gotta replenish.
Restock, yeah.
Most of them do not stay. Now, you get the trailers that come in, like doing the corn dogs and that kind of stuff. That's a little different. It's a little bit different.
Actually, the law got changed with the state. They no longer have the certain and a time limit anymore.
What time limit are
So
we
a
talking about?
trailer can park actually out here at the lights and stay there all the time.
For you, it can't. For us, it can't. We don't allow that.
Okay,
We don't allow it to sit there. Because that's taking the place of a brick and mortar, and that's not happening.
but
I understand what you're
yeah.
saying, but that's not gonna happen. That's not happening with our ordinance. They have to leave the site.
Right.
They can't go and just set up and stay there. Most of them don't want to. They move because they're moving to where they know that this is gonna be my crowd is gonna be here this time, and it's gonna be here this time. So they move for that purpose. That's their point. Or that's the ones I'm finding. I mean, they don't come here and set up all the time. They come here and set up food truck Friday. The burrito man's up there on Wednesdays and Fridays, but that's it, because these other locations during the week, they move around so they get the best return on their investment.
well, for us, it used to be that if you were at 410 and 4th Avenue, and if you parked there for 3 days, you couldn't come back for 30 days. And then the state dropped that.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
now, they're able to actually come here and park on Wednesdays and Fridays at the exact same spot over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I said, food trucks have changed from the dunk or the roach coach, as you call it, the old style. Of course, most of that was already prepackaged stuff, and it wasn't, yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't prepared like it is today.
and that kitchen, the action for it was nasty. I closed it down.
Yeah.
I don't like talking to you. Every time I talk to you, I just want to quit going out to eat. I don't ever want to hear anything about Jasmine, okay? Just don't say nothing, all right? Don't say a word.
Oh, I can tell you stories. of
Hush,
that.
hush.
Yeah.
I was in the
John,
military. I can deal with it.
Do you think that are there enough of the folks that are setting up the little tents that don't have a trailer, don't have a food truck? That is it a one-off, or is it something that
We've got-
oughta add some words in here?
I think we've got a couple of them right now. They're not here all the time, but they do come and set up, and they'll do hot dogs, and they'll do lemonade and some other stuff like that. Joel's favorite guy runs like that.
Thanks, John.
But honestly, we don't have, it's not as prevalent, nowhere near as prevalent as the other.
But
I think it's difficult for
I
them to
see your
set up like
point, though.
that.
If it's really not fair to the food truck folks if we're making them pay a fee and then we let somebody else. come
That's
up
exactly
in.
what I'm
And
thinking.
they got less overhead to begin with, and then they don't have a fee to pay.
So they should probably be included.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what
same-
I'm thinking.
that thing,
So-
Just because their truck happens to be their Honda Civic.
While you're looking at another word for commissary, maybe think about some other words to put in there that would cover us for,
And we'll need to do a public hearing on that.
yeah.
It will be changing the
text change.
definition.
See if you're better than Greg, because if Greg did that, it would be 3 more pages he'd add to it.
Yeah.
They will not agree. But so they're coming in not on a food truck, just in their regular truck, getting out a grill. or
Doesn't
something?
have to
Okay.
be, we could also do something, call it something else, and just add that in there and indicate that it's gonna be treated the same as a food truck. And it's call it something else. You have a name for that?
With table.
I was gonna say, and
Tent sales.
a temporary food booth,
Just get out a grill.
Temporary, did you hear that?
Yeah.
temporary food booth.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody brings something to the table. Very good.
As long as I don't bring bugs, right?
You had to go there.
Yeah, I know it.
Here, Matthew.
But yeah, we could, set it in as a definition
Mhm.
and then treat it just, if you guys wanted to, treat it just like
Yeah.
a food truck.
Yeah.
So,
Somebody, that'd be the fairest way to do it.
okay. All right.
Good. Anything else, John?
That's it, sir.
We have our city commissioners with us. Y'all have anything else to add? Did we do okay?
Very good.
Okay.
And I'm impressed with the number.
You know how I am. I'm gonna cut to the chase. I don't want superfluous stuff. Just cut to the chase and move on.
All right.
We'll talk afterwards.
No other business? Do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion by Joel. Here a second.
Second.
Second by Darren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at